One over there, mine, shading the. Got it, yeah. Okay, so, welcome. Welcome back after our break. And so we're gonna begin in chapter 3 of the first book of Kings.
Verse.
Chapter 3, we read a few verses of it last time. So
Yeah.
last time we read about the death of David, and then the beginning of Solomon solidifying his rule, which involved killing many people. But now we are really starting Solomon's reign. Okay, so we're going to learn. Well, we'll see. It's straightforward. So someone want to say what page number we're on?
713.
Okay, thank you. So someone go.
Solomon allied himself by marriage with Pharaoh, king of Egypt. He married Pharaoh's daughter and brought her to the city of David to live there until he had finished building his palace and the house of the Lord and the walls around Jerusalem.
Okay, so suffer size. So, right, so this is we're gonna learn about what Solomon is doing for the kingdom, right? So what's one thing we learned just from this first verse?
Alliances.
Alliances, foreign alliances, right? We're gonna learn about international relations. Okay? And one way of in the ancient world of making alliances was through marriage, right? Okay. And not just in the ancient world, up until the modern world, right? Okay. And good. So he marries Pharaoh's daughter though. So what's the deal with Egypt?
The top dog.
Perhaps, right? But we don't learn after they're not that top dog anymore, right? So we've talked about this, like historically at this time, Egypt is weak. That's why, one of the reasons there's a lot of chaos in the land of Israel, right? Between all these city states and then Solomon's building a kingdom, maybe even an empire, right? And the Hittites are weak. And we're yet to see the rise of Assyria and then okay? Those are the other great powers that come from the east, okay?
Were there any
Egypt
issues
to the
of,
west, or the southwest, yeah.
I was just gonna say, the issue of intermarriage, was that?
Intermarriage, okay, so what we call intermarriage in modern American Judaism, right? So what is? Did Pharaoh's daughter become an Israelite according to the Torah? Well, like the ancient rabbis would like to say that, like, when these Israelite men married non-Israelite women, they converted. There's no such thing as conversion in the Bible, right? But it's planting the seed for Solomon's downfall. One of the things with Solomon's downfall with foreign women. And I know I'm sounding misogynist because the text can be kind of misogynist, and so foreign women can be called. Okay, but why? Why do you think? What is it planting the seed about?
Well, they bring their own gods.
They bring their own God.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. It has nothing to do, there's no such thing as like. The book of Ezra, maybe there is, but in the Torah, there's no such thing as blood and like Nazi notions
But
of,
it's
mixing blood and things like that. But.
It's even more misogynist. Well, that not only do they bring their own gods, but the sort of temptation of idolatry.
Right. there's
Kind
no
of
need for idolatry.
manifested in women.
Okay, good, sorry, Katie, you were reading, verse 2.
The people, however, continued to offer sacrifices at the open shrines because up to that time, no house had been built for the name of the Lord. And Solomon, though he loved the Lord and followed the practices of his father David, also sacrificed and offered at the shrines.
Right, so far, these shrines are not idolatrous shrines, there's no one central shrine, right? So what's the word for a shrine? Well, is bama. Okay, so you see here bamot, these shrines, these level high places in
Bima?
So the word
Bima?
bima
Yeah.
means the same thing, raised place, right?
Oh.
Okay, Later, though, that becomes a problematic word, but right now it doesn't seem to have a bad connotation, but it's kind of foreshadowing for it, I think, okay? So Bama or Bamot, the raised places, or was translated as shrines, are places where sacrifices are offered, okay?
The king went to Gibeon to sacrifice there, for that was the largest shrine. On that altar, Solomon presented 1,000 burnt offerings. At Gibeon, the Lord appeared to Solomon in a dream by night, and God said, "Ask what shall I grant you?" Solomon said, "You dealt most graciously with your servant, my father David, because he walked before you in faithfulness and righteousness and in integrity of heart. You have continued this great kindness to him by giving him a son to occupy his throne, as is now the case. And now, O Lord my God, you have made your servant king in place of my father David. But I am a young lad with no experience in leadership. Your servant finds himself in the midst of the people you have chosen, a people too numerous to be numbered or counted."
Stop there. People too numerous to be counted, what is that?
Abraham.
Abraham, your descendants will be too numerous,
Right,
right?
oh, that's
So what Solomon's saying, we are now fulfilling the promise of Abraham, right? Okay.
Grant then your servant an understanding mind to judge your people, to distinguish between good and bad. For who can judge this vast people of yours?
Okay, so Solomon has, in this dream, has this request of God, and what's his request?
Let him be a good king, like
To be a
Jesus.
good
be a
king,
good
wise, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So a real recognition that he's not narcissistic, he's God people.
yeah, right, and he starts with a very humble statement.
Very
I don't know what I'm doing,
Yeah,
you know?
really.
Yeah, make me wise, okay, good.
The Lord was pleased that Solomon had asked for this. And God said to him, "Because you asked for this, you did not ask for long life, you did not ask for riches, you did not ask for the life of your enemies, but you asked for discernment in dispensing justice. I now do as you have spoken. I grant you a wise and discerning mind. There has never been anyone like you before, nor will anyone like you arise again. And I also grant you what you did not ask for, both riches and glory of your life, the life of which no king has ever had.
Wow.
And I will further grant you long life, if you will walk in my ways and observe my laws and commandments, as did your father David."
Wow.
If, right?
Yeah, if, right.
Okay. There's never, in the Bible, I don't think, God's blessings are conditional, or God's blessings are conditional, because it's about a give and take, if you will, between how you act and how God reacts, right? Okay, yeah. Okay, but walk in my ways and commandments is language like in the book of Deuteronomy. Right? Comments, questions,
Well, we're told it's a dream,
the dream, yes.
so how literally,
I don't know, dreams are pretty important in the Torah, like, last week.
Joseph.
We finished the story of Joseph, and Joseph interprets dreams, right? So dreams are kind of a lower level of prophecy, but dreams are a kind of prophecy, right?
What was the dream before, or the action, like maybe it happened and they went back?
Yeah, I mean, the people who wrote this, how did they have access to Solomon's dreams, but, yeah, but when you're reading a novel and something like this happens, you go with it, right? So.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So,
Robert, can I ask about the Bema again?
Yeah.
Just one other question. So I understand that they were not idolatrous,
So far,
but you're opening yourself up to.
perhaps.
Yeah, okay.
Perhaps, so let's talk about it, because in a second, we're going to start building the temple soon. So let's talk, Giv'ah, where he went, right, or Gibeon, Givonah, right, it's called, Givon, where he went to this Bama. It's like outside of Jerusalem a bit. Some archaeologists think they found it, it's a little bit outside of Jerusalem, so it seems like at this time. We know that the Ark of the Covenant is in Jerusalem. But we don't yet have a main altar there to have sacrifices, and there's sacrifices happening all over the country, and the main one, seems like in the story, is in this place, Gibeon, right, Gibeon. And so what is this setting us up to do? Solomon's going to bring it all down to Jerusalem, right? Okay. Now, that didn't quite happen that way historically, because throughout the prophets, it still talks about all these different worship sites, but Solomon is centralizing not just government authority, but also religious authority in Jerusalem, right? Okay. So, because here's what happens. So someone pick up in verse 15.
Then Solomon awoke. It was a dream. He went to Jerusalem, stood before the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and sacrificed burnt offerings and presented offerings of well-being. And he made a banquet with all his courtiers.
Right, so a banquet, like offering, we have to remember, offerings weren't just like wasted meat.
Yeah.
Some of them you burnt totally, that went straight up, but most of them you ate, right? And so like, he's doing, he like has a festival here with sacrifices and they're eating together, right? Okay. Okay, so that's kind of. We're kind of here to see that he's getting the idea to like really start the project of centralizing the temple, right? That make sense? Okay, so now we have the famous story that you all know from somewhere.
Later, 2 prostitutes came to the king and stood before him. The first woman said, "Please, my lord, this woman and I live in the same house, and I gave birth to a child while she was in the house. On the 3rd day after I was delivered, this woman also gave birth to a child. We were alone, and there was no one else with us in the house, just the 2 of us in the house. During the night, this woman's child died because she lay on it.
Oh.
She arose in the night and took my son from my side while your maidservant was asleep, and laid him in her bosom, and she laid her dead son in my bosom. When I arose in the morning to nurse my son, there he was dead. But when I looked at him closely in the morning, it was not the son I had born." The other woman spoke up, "No, the live one is my son, and the dead one is yours." But the first insisted, "No, the dead boy is yours, mine is the live one." And they went on arguing before the king. The king said, "One says, 'This is my son, the live one, and the dead one is yours.' And the other says, 'No, the dead boy is yours, mine is the live one.'"
Stop. We've heard the story? Okay, we know what's gonna happen, but let's look at, it's kind of, what are the peculiarities of the story?
That the women knew to come to Solomon?
Right,
I
so
mean-
Solomon's acting as a judge and you know, mediates disputes, right, like David did. Remember Absalom, who wanted to take over from David, started doing that too, right? Okay, 2, that
They were
people
from-
from the lowest parts of society
Right,
can
us,
come
yes,
to the
right,
king, come right to the king,
I
right,
didn't know.
okay?
You know that part of the story.
That was new.
What else? You have to dig a little deeper.
That they were alone and that, I mean, that's.
Right, so it's a he
There's
said,
no
it's a
family.
she said, there's no evidence about anything, right? Okay,
Kind of like my accent.
yeah, there's no evidence, okay, but what else? So much so that we get confused in the story. One said, the other said, the other said, one said, we don't know who's who, right?
Yeah.
Right? That happens a lot in rabbinic literature too, when they give parables, it's a parable, right? When they give parables, one things that it's really hard to figure out who's speaking on purpose, I think, right? Okay, so
They don't give them names.
they don't give them names, right? So it makes it confusing, right? Okay,
And the translation of the word prostitute, does that mean prostitute, like in our modern sense? Or does it mean something else?
So the king
see,
gave,
wait, hold on, so you see in verse 16, I'll show you some Hebrew here, there's no note. Still the word used in Hebrew today, zonah is a prostitute, right? And like. In Hebrew, it's like a slur, it calls someone a zonah.
Yeah.
Or a bench zonah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Welcome.
Oh, there's, sorry.
Is there any indication as to what the motivation of the mother who has the dead baby and has stolen the other woman's baby? Why was she done that? because her son is there.
Yeah, I mean,
Because it's,
I mean,
barren woman's not a good.
and someone who's never given birth before, but like, I don't know, like, she has a psychological need to have a baby at that point, I guess. I don't know, like, you know,
I would took it to be a sociological need.
yeah,
That-
well, maybe
that-
that too, but.
Yeah, that, you know, it's seen a couple of times where it's really rough on women who are barren.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right,
It's like
I-
just setting up a powerful.
Yeah.
Emotionally powerful.
Yeah.
Dilemma that's impossible. They don't give the names.
Yeah.
Giving birth is powerful.
Yeah.
The loss of a child
Yeah.
is powerful.
yeah,
It doesn't matter which one's with, in my mind. if
Yeah.
you agree.
right, exactly, yeah,
It's all a setup for showing,
showing Tomlin's.
His with
Yeah.
the, right.
There's also no husband, then
Right.
they're
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's.
Why are they prostitutes? I think it's meant to shock us in the story. That we're supposed to think
Really?
poorly upon the women, but then not, well, one of them we do at the end feel bad about, or feel bad towards and feel bad about the other one, right? Because when we have prostitutes, remember back to last year, the prostitute who saved the spies from
Yeah.
Joshua, right?
Yeah.
When we see the prostitute, we're supposed to think this is a shifty person, but it turns out, no, she's the hero, right?
Wasn't that, what you said before, that they are part of the lowest strata of society,
Yeah.
they still can come to the king.
Yeah,
Is that
you still
supposed?
come to the game,
yeah.
yeah, right, right. I think that's part of it too, that we're seeing even these people who like. The judges in their town wouldn't take their case, the king took their case, I think that's maybe where we're supposed to see too, yeah. Okay,
So the king gave the order, fetch me a sword. The sword was brought before the king, and the king said, cut the live child in two, give half to one and half to the other. But the woman whose son was the live one pleaded with the king, for she was overcome with compassion for her son. Please, my lord, she cried, give her the live child, only don't kill it. The other insisted, it shall be neither yours nor mine, cut it in two.
Whoa.
Then the king spoke up, give the live child to her, he said, and do not put it to death. She is its mother. When all Israel heard the decision that the king had rendered, they stood in awe of the king, for they saw that he possessed divine wisdom to execute justice.
right, but he didn't. Is like the justice, he didn't cite any kind of precedent, he didn't look into any kind of evidence, he didn't, right? It was like cleverness.
Very clever, right.
Right, yeah, now, it is kind of disturbing though, too, right? But,
Give her the live child, only don't kill it.
Right.
The other insisted, it shall be neither yours nor mine.
Because-
Two. Then the king spoke,
Yeah.
give live child to her.
no.
Also say to
The
who?
first one, yeah.
No, I know.
I know, but it were, but
Not
I
straightforward.
know, because it just said her, it just says, so we have, I think we have to believe he's saying her, you know, the one who didn't want the baby to die. Right, yeah, yeah.
It just seems strange. It's not like-
Yeah, I think it's gotta be on purpose, right?
Would have been clear in the video.
Right, but it, yeah,
Not so
it,
sure.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It's also sort of sneaky in my mind.
Yeah,
That Solomon,
he's playing with
what
the
what
rules.
would he have done if both of them said, okay, cut it in half,
Oh, boy.
Yeah, right,
Maybe not give it to either of them.
yeah, yeah.
take it.
You say I'll adopt the child, I hopefully, but we don't know, we don't know.
Counterfactual.
Right, so like, sometimes wisdom, you're so clever, maybe you have to follow through with it, and justice doesn't lead to compassion sometimes, right? I think that's because often in biblical thought, well, really picked up by the rabbis through the Bible, is like, you have a balance between deen and rachamim, between justice and compassion. And the rabbis say, if the world was only built on truth and justice, we would all die, right? Because we would all be guilty. But if the world was only built on love and compassion, right? There would be no justice, like, you know, you need to have the balance.
Yeah, okay, too.
So would Solomon had to have followed through with that? Yeah. It's, that's why it is it's more disturbing story than you think, right? Okay, but it shows he's very clever. Anything else we see here? Shall we move on to some government bureaucracy and building and, you know, infrastructure projects?
Someone's got their hand up.
Someone has their hand up at home? Sorry. Who has their hand up?
Christine.
No, that was a cursor, I think.
Yeah, that's the cursor. I
Yeah,
think that's
that's
the
it,
cursor.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's a-
sorry.
Right.
Hand up.
I know it just froze it.
Lower your cursor.
Okay. So someone else pick up in chapter 4.
King, I'll do it. King Solomon was now king over all Israel. These were his officials. Oh, my goodness. Okay, here we go. I took him for the king. I took him for the
You
king.
want me to do this chapter?
Go for it, Rabbi.
So, but I want to point out, because there's parallel chapters like this in the story of David, where it talks about all his officials. But I was reading about this, and David always starts with the military people when it talks about the officials. Who's it starting with here? With the priests. What is that maybe saying about Solomon's time?
Less war.
Yeah, it was common.
Yeah.
Okay, these are Solomon's officials. Azariah ben Sadok HaKohen, or Azariahu ben Sadok HaKohen. Azariah, the son of Sadok, the priest, all right? Sadok was one of David's priests, if you remember, right? Elichoref and Achiyah, sons of Shisha, they are the Sofrim, the scribes, right? So what else is important for Solomon? Written records, right?
Involved.
A sofer, sofrim, that's the word we use for someone who scribes the Torah, right? It's the word we use. Yehoshaphat ben Achilud, he is the maskir, the recorder. So again, something else about keeping
What's
records.
the difference between a scribe and a
I
recorder?
don't.
Recorders electronic.
That's good.
Something you play.
Well, maybe the
Quarter might be-
recording is just
He watches over the scribe.
Yeah.
meetings, and but
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
scribe is the books of
Yeah, maybe
our-
the stenographer versus the person who then writes. the
Yeah,
book,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
And draws pictures and everything.
So, all right, I'll tell you in a second. Okay. Hold on. Ben Yahu ben Yehoyada, al Hatzavah. So Ben Yahu, the son of Yehoyada, is over the army. Savah is still the word we use for army in Hebrew, right? So, we call it Hayat, but it's Savah Haganah, the Yisrael, the Israel Defense Forces. Right? It's Sadok the Aviatar Kohanim, right? I don't know why they mentioned the priests again. Azariahu ben Natan, he's in charge of the Nitzavim, these prefects, these governors. We're going to learn about the governors soon. David didn't have this position, these governors. Is he son of Nathan? Is this Nathan who is David's prophet? Maybe, I don't know. Zabud ben Natan, another son of Nathan. Nathan Kohen Rea is also a priest, and he's Kohen. But he's also this position called Rea Hamelach, the friend of the king, maybe some kind of advisor or something like that, right? Cool. Achishar Al Habayit, he's over the house, so he's the
Chief of staff.
chief of staff, or maybe the facility director.
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
house, I don't
custodian,
know.
yeah.
Adoni Ram ben Abda, he al Hamas, in charge of, so Mas, this is a word we learn in this week's Torah portion too, which is Mas is what Pharaoh brings to the Israelites. At the beginning though, it's forced labor is, we're gonna learn about it in a second. It's not slavery. There's a different word than slavery. It means, we've talked about this before, part of your taxes that you pay to the government is working in infrastructure projects, right? So we're gonna learn how they set up that bureaucracy in a second, okay? That's this word mas, but it's also the word that's in this week's Torah portion about what Pharaoh does to the Israelites. Right? But what makes Pharaoh different is, it says that it was overstrenuous, it was like cruel work, but this word mas means it's a corvair labor is one word for it.
So it's the kind of thing you're taxed, so if you have a farm, then you give us some of your crops.
Yeah.
But if you don't have anything, you don't have any money, then you work.
Or it could be,
Sort of what
if
the-
there's a town of skilled laborers, Well, see, I think 1 month a year, you use your skill for infrastructure projects for the capital.
Yeah.
Or if you have all these farm hands that aren't doing anything in the winter. Because you're not harvesting the crops now, you come to Jerusalem to work, or you go to whatever town we're building or something like that. That's what it is. We'll do that. Yeah. Nathan.
Our current, Hamas, is that?
No.
No.
So the word in Arabic, when you listen to Arabic speakers, it's pronounced more like Hamas. In Palestinian Arabic, it's an acronym for like the Islamic Party of, something like the Islamic Resistance or something like that. But there is a Hebrew word, Hamas, with a chet. This is hey with a chet, Hamas, which means destruction, and it means like chaos.
That's about right.
So like, did the people who founded Hamas, that party Hamas,
It means chaos.
a lot of them knew Hebrew because they were in Israeli jails for a long time. So they knew Hebrew. Did they pick that so to sound like something in Hebrew? Most people say no, it's just a coincidence, but they.
I find it interesting that this reference to forced labor, when I think about Herzl, when he was writing about how his plans for the formation of Israel, and he's talking about these unskilled laborers that would come in and first start building, and they would not receive payment, but they would receive a home
Yeah.
and food.
That's
But then it was really more of a communal kind of attitude, whereas here it's called forced labor.
right. So fortunately, yeah. So I don't know. So I don't
Like slavery.
force mean because you're all forced to pay your taxes. That's what it means. It sound it. We'll see in a second that Solomon tried not to make it harsh. We'll see, but at the end of Solomon's reign, we'll see something else. But force means because we are all compelled by punishment to pay taxes. So we are forced to do this. Our government doesn't have the system where you have to work. Well, I don't know, kind of.
So
it
does. I think you could.
Yeah.
Make an argument that the whole idea of money is to compel us to
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway,
So,
that's
yeah, I mean, you
economic.
could look at it many different ways, right?
Yeah,
We are,
you don't have
but
to
also
be-
like in America, for certain welfare programs, you're forced to
Yeah.
work, right?
I mean, what do you do with your life? You're not gonna work too. That's a
Right, so
flip side.
work,
but-
work also, we can find things about work and dignity and work and things like that, but like, this is compelled tax. Let's say,
Anywhere.
okay,
It's like pig
This
pens.
is a responsible thing for like, and we don't have a requirement in America to serve in the military.
we don't anymore.
We don't anymore, right? But is it like the idea of serving
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
greater good and
Yeah.
You have a
it's not
spell.
military, but
Ken
it's
was-
of
Yes.
it's the same as that, like,
Yeah.
community.
Yeah, I mean, you could look at, maybe the Israelite citizens thought that, at the same time, it is compelled, right? But yeah, sure. I mean, so in Israel today, you are compelled to be in the army. And you see it as service, right? So it's looking at it to,
In
the
America,
same-
you're
two sides of the
compelled,
same coin,
you're
right?
compelled to pay taxes, which means
So
You kind of have
in
to work.
America, we are
But-
compelled to pay taxes. So some people in America see it
Right.
as serve as,
Right.
we'll take the extreme libertarians see it as slavery to the government.
Right.
Or
We were gonna
You know,
start, Ken was here, if there was any more.
the social democratic side, I mean, like, kind of your, like, left-wing side see it as, no, this is our service to society,
Right.
right? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Same, two sides of the same coin. So we'll see at the end of Solomon's story with his son, the other side of that. right? So now let's see how the system works. Okay, so now, well, there's more names. You want me to read?
Yeah.
Keep it on.
So Solomon had 12.
Everybody has
So
their
this
strength.
is this new position, the Nitzavim, the 12 prefects governing all of Israel. Why 12?
Tribes of, yeah.
Tribes of Israel maybe, except that they don't always line up to the tribal boundaries here. Some of them do, but Solomon is like creating new governing structure. He's modernizing the state, if you will. I don't know, right? Okay. So hopefully they're kind of equal population, because like the way we in America do it with states today is like, doesn't work anymore, right? Some states are tiny and some states are huge and some states, right? So
It's called prefects because of the tribes of Israel.
that's what it seems like, but they don't line up to, some of them line up to the tribes territories, but some of them. Solomon had 12 prefects governing all Israel who provided food for the king and his household. Each had to provide food for 1 month of the year. What is that?
It's the tax.
That's tax.
The tax.
Maybe that's why he had 12.
Or maybe, yeah. these are 12 months.
That's why I was saying, yeah, well, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So, the Israelites, of course, which we still have, is a 12-month year, right? Lunar month. Every couple of years, you need to add an extra month. It doesn't talk about that specifically in the Bible, but I'm sure they did because the festivals have to line up with the sun, right? So,
Because sometimes 13.
Planting season.
so this year's a 13-year.
I mean,
13-month
the people, they might,
Yeah,
they need
so
another
what do
person.
they do in the leap year here? We don't know. But what does it mean, food? You tax the produce. You tax produce and animals, right? And then they come to Jerusalem. And that's how that's how the government eats, right? Now, let's look at the two sides of the coin here. What's a good thing about that system? Community contribution, okay. What else?
It's not harsh for anyone.
Well, it's equal, right?
It's
Yeah.
equal and,
Yeah, nobody's paying more taxes than others.
and you know where you're gonna, when you're gonna do it. and-
Right, so the prefects. They may be corrupt and take more from one individual farm than another, but each region has to pay the same,
Right.
okay? All right. What else? How about Solomon is not running his own land and using the resources, right? So that could be part of it too. Kind of like we learned in the Torah, like the priests don't own land, right? They have to be supported by the community. So it builds a mutual, when you have to be supported by the community, it builds a mutual dependency, right? Okay, but what could be bad about it?
Well, any individual prefect could become more powerful and challenge you, and this is given an opportunity to do so.
Sure,
Or you might have to give so much, you know, if you tax so much, you don't have enough left.
yeah, right.
Otherwise-
We don't know how much the prefects are pocketing, but yeah, like taxes can become burdensome, right? Okay, especially when it's food. They didn't have a monetary system you know. And there were coins and things like that, but like mostly it's real goods or what you're taxed. And so, you know, there is a lot of room for starving people there.
So I guess what I'm confused about is the harvest is always at a particular time.
Yeah.
So what happens if
You have to store your food.
you're storing it and you're giving your store, you're
We're
not
just saying
giving.
Solomon built
okay,
storehouses.
Right, okay, so you're giving the store that money,
Government store.
what you store.
Yeah. Right, because when you harvest, in that. That's why grain is so important, because you can store grain,
I see.
right? And that's why, that's why dates and figs, they allow you to get dry then, right? And they drink a lot of wine. One, because, you can get bacteria from water, but two, wine,
It's better with age.
but it brings you. Wine because it's caloric. That's why wine is a way to preserve grapes, right? Yeah, so, but people in Egypt and Babylonia, they drank a lot of beer because they had more water. Wine, you don't need, the water's already in the paper, you don't add water to it, right? And so, that's how you got through the winter.
But do we know that if the region was smaller, it had to provide less, or were they
That's what-
all?
yeah.
Yeah, I
That's what you
don't
don't
know.
That's what you
I
don't
guess
know.
we
I agree.
presume that he built these new regions to be kind of the
Really
same
equal.
size, I'm not sure.
You would think.
Cause they each had to do a month,
Maybe.
if you have to do a month, and
Yeah.
You want to be fair about it,
Yeah, I guess.
Relative.
Just size.
Yeah.
There's location,
Yeah.
there's terrain, there's.
What they grow.
What if they have a bad harvest?
Yeah, right, yeah, bad harvest, that happens, right?
What if the people feel they're not getting their money's worth or their food's worth?
Right, well, so we're gonna find out, but Solomon seems to like give a lot to the people, we'll see, right? There's a lot of infrastructure projects going on. And international trade we're gonna learn about, right? And so like the system is working as a system, right? But if the people, after Solomon dies, if the people don't see the goods coming back, what are they gonna do? It
Stop.
happens after he dies,
give up, yeah.
because it's a war. Okay. All right, so here are the Nitzavim, these governors. These were their names, Ben-Hur,
Ben-Hur.
right, so that's where there's a famous novel written by a Civil War general called Ben-Hur. But it takes place, it doesn't take place at this time, it takes place at the time of Jesus.
Yeah.
It became a famous movie in the 50s, right? Something like that, with Charlton Heston. Yeah, right, okay, but that's where it got the name, I guess. Yeah, Ben-Hur in the hill country of Ephraim. Ben Deker in Makaz and Sha'albim. And Beit Shemesh, which is a town in Israel today, right? And Elon Beit Hanan. Ben Chesed, that's a nice name. Ben Chesed means the son of, Chesed means love and kindness, right? In Arubot, he governed in Socho and all of the Hepher area. Ben Aminadav in all of Nafat Dor. Solomon's daughter Tafat was his wife. So it seems like these governors were pretty important, right? Ba'ana, son of Achilud in Ta'anach and Megiddo and all of Beit She'an, Megiddo, Beit She'an, they are towns in Israel today. Megiddo, where do we know this word from, especially Christian mythology? Har Megiddo, in mountain Megiddo, which became Grecicized, I don't know, as Armageddon, right? Which is beside Sartan, below Israel, the Jezreel Valley, right? From Beit She'an to Avel Mechola, as far as the other side of Yokmeam. Ben Gever, this guy was in Ramoth Gilad, which is on the other side of the Jordan, on the east side of the Jordan. He governed the villages of Yair, son of Menashe, that are in Gilad. And he also governed the district of Argov, that is in Bashan, 60 large towns with walls and bronze bars, right? Bashan, that was an area in the Torah that was non-Israelites, right? Og, the king of Bashan was an enemy, they fought with the Israelites, okay? So walls and bronze bars, what does that mean? These are fortified towns. Achinadav, son of Iddo, in Machanaim. Achimaaz in Naphtali. He too took a daughter of Solomon, Bosmat, to wife. Ba'ana, son of Hushi, in Asher, in Baalot. Yehoshaphat, son of Paruach, in Issachar, right? So some of these are the tribal territories, right? Shimei, son of Elah, in Binyamin. And Geber, son of Uri, in the region of Gilad, in the country of Sichon, king of the Amorites, and Og, king of Bashan, right? Those are enemies of Israel.
Yes,
One prefect who was in the land. I don't know what this one prefect who was in the land, I was looking that up, it's just like an unnamed guy, we don't know. Judah, and some people have noticed that it doesn't seem, the territory of Judah, where Solomon's family is from, doesn't seem to be taxed, or maybe that this one prefect was the governor of Judah, or maybe the king directly ruled Judah. If he didn't tax his own family, what would that mean? I don't know, but okay. Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sands of the sea, and they ate and drank and were
Content.
right? What does that mean? It's all working.
Can't happy.
Yeah, no, it's all working.
So we should understand these prefects as administrative people that Solomon gave power to, not as minor warlords.
No, it seems like Solomon, yeah,
Right.
they're not, it doesn't say they're elders from the tribes.
Yeah.
It doesn't say that they have their own grassroots base of power. They were appointed, it
Yeah.
seems like they were appointed by Solomon, yeah.
And it also doesn't say that he chose people for their loyalty to him.
Right, except that two of them are married to his daughter, so maybe. So,
What
I
would
just think it's more complicated.
what would I look up if I wanted to see a map of?
I'll pull it up.
Okay.
Funny you should ask.
Let's do that.
It was a good segue.
Yeah.
Good, very good.
Right, let's see if we can find
It's important that the writer points out Judah and Israel
Yeah,
and not just one land and one people.
well, right, because it's important that the writer points out Judah and Israel, because at times there have been tensions between the tribe of Judah and the rest of the Israelites, right? And that was a big part of the story of Saul and David, right? And so he's saying that, I think he's saying, the writer is saying that everything is harmonious now with one kingdom, right? I think, but it foreshadows it. Right? Okay, let's look up.
Solomon rule extended over.
Wait, hold on, we're looking up a map.
No, we do have historical data. Right, yeah, not much here, because he consolidated.
Here. So here's one version, I just trying to vision something I Googled about the kingdom of Israel, it's bigger. Well, that's a little too big, but, so. Or you make it smaller. Was this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, right, so,
Why do
oh, this is Saul and David's kingdom, sorry, so this was Saul and David's kingdom, right? But I think in Solomon's kingdom, it's even bigger, or according to the books, right? So I don't know.
That's right.
Do you think that we're getting all this detail because the writers wanted to give a shout out to those people?
Yeah, maybe,
Or
maybe,
was it-
maybe. So this, yeah, this is more like Solomon's kingdom here. That goes all the way down, and it's gonna talk about that just in a second, goes all the way down to the Red Sea. Right? So you see this town here, Timnah, it talks about in these stories that this is where he they have mines for I think copper mines. And they found, you could go there today, they found the ancient Solomon, but they found the ancient mines here. Now, was that Solomon? I don't know, but right, you see here is still where the Philistines live, it's still marked off a little bit. But you know, I can probably find a better map that's easier to see here. I'm sorry, all those pop-ups. That was me. But it's going to say in a second, it goes all the way here to the Euphrates, this is the Euphrates here, right? And all the way to the border of Egypt here, right? Here, you see, it says Gaza, right here, that's Gaza, right? Okay. Yeah, right here. Okay, so Solomon's kingdom is large. This is the Jordan River here. We're on the other side of the Jordan. Here's Damascus, right, which is in Syria today. I mean, did it ever reach this far? We don't know, but this is what the Bible is telling us, right? Okay. Right? This is Jordan, right? So these are the cities of the Phoenicians here. Cyprus. So what does it mean, this kingdom also, it could just mean these are his tributaries also, right? Like satellite states. Okay. Let's keep going.
Can you in two places?
Yeah, because I couldn't see the map, so I.
You can all look at Beaumont for your.
It was pretty cool. I go, whoa.
Yeah, because I
Okay.
couldn't see.
So now we're
weather or
gonna talk maps here. But it's also, this is important because when I'll say right-wing fanatics in Israel talk about the borders of the land of Israel, they might be using this map, right? Or they might be using, there's several different borders in the Bible, right? But from Egypt to the Euphrates is what some people talk about, right?
Oh, good luck with that.
Yeah, okay.
Is it what Netanyahu is using these days?
No, but people in his coalition. Okay. So here we go. So read this.
Solomon. Go.
Okay.
One of the
Sol-
pens go.
Can go.
Solomon's rule extended over all kingdoms from the Euphrates to the land of the Philistines and the boundary of Egypt. They brought Solomon tribute and were subject to him all his life.
Right, so now, are all these people included in the 12 prefects? I'm not sure. They might still have their own kings who are bringing, paying taxes to Solomon too, right? So the Euphrates is just Hanaha, you see it here, Hanaha, which means just the river is the Euphrates, so that's the title it gets, right? Okay,
Solomon's daily provisions consisted of 30 cores of Simon, yeah, right, that's pasta, I guess, and
it's a good kind of wheat.
What quarters of
Four.
the amount, right?
Tons.
Tons.
A lot,
Quarts.
I don't know.
there may be cores, right now, 60 cores of ordinary flour, 10 fattened oxen, 20 pastured fed oxen, and 100 sheep and goats, besides deer and gazelles, roebucks and fatted geese, for he controlled the whole region west of the Euphrates. All the kings west of the Euphrates, from Tipshah to Gaza, he had peace. He had peace on all his borders round about.
Right, so this place, I looked this up, this place, Tifshah is, it's in Syria today.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Okay, so from the Euphrates in the northeast, right? Not like all the way to Iraq, because the Euphrates kind of goes at a diagonal, but the northeast all the way, so we're going here from the northeast to the southwest. That's what we're looking
Think about
So
those amounts,
it
so that's
says-
daily, that's a lot when you're,
Right,
if
it's a
you,
whole-
if you provide it for a month, your whole region has to provide that much for a month.
I
That's a lot.
guess so, or is this just what he's getting from the foreign people? I'm not sure.
No.
I don't know, but it's like, it's coming in, so going to sacrifices, going to feed the whole palace, going to, things like that.
That's what I was gonna ask, how many people is it feeding? Because it said,
But it's building a huge bureaucracy, it's feeding a lot, right, I guess.
But it says daily provisions.
yeah.
Yeah.
they are.
I know, that's what I said, and
I-
if you have to do
I
a whole
don't know how
month
much
of that.
really is, but it's saying, but what is it also saying, like, goods are moving? Right, goods are moving around the
Yeah,
empire.
yeah, it sounds like everything's working, it's quick, peaceful time. it's
Yeah,
quiet,
yeah.
huh?
Yeah,
And then,
People to rely have to rely on each other.
yeah, right,
That provides some-
and bring
Good
peace.
point.
When you have to, I mean, the whole, in the night, I studied international relations in the 90s. The whole idea, which has broken down lately, the whole idea was, when goods flow freely, what happens?
Peace.
Peace comes.
Yeah.
When we open up to China, they were going to liberalize, didn't happen, right? But this is what it's saying here too. Goods are flowing, the foreign kings are finding this is bringing peace too, like, okay, we have to pay a lot to this king, but he's bringing peace to us, right? That's the system, right? That's how the Roman Empire worked too, until you rebelled against it, right?
also it was a time of bounty, there were no famines or droughts.
There you go.
The
Yeah.
earth was being very good to these peoples.
But also, if there is famine and drought,
You have,
when goods are flowing, you can
Recover,
right?
recover.
That's what we learned in the Torah, what the Israelites had to move to Egypt, right? But here, we don't have to move, we have goods moving, right? Yeah,
No supply chain.
supply chain.
Yes.
We're gonna learn, the Israelites are gonna learn how to use boats soon from the Phoenicians, right? There you go, man, then you can rely on your own supply chains once you have the skills, right?
So, Rabbi, is this describing a territory larger than just the two regions that we just?
Yeah, it seems like, because they're expanding the territory, meaning tributaries too, meaning foreign kings who rule their own territory, but they are protected by something, kind of like. There are American military bases in Germany, in,
South Korea.
South Korea, right? They are tributes to the,
I mean, it's
if you
like-
want to see it this way, they are tributes to the American.
it's a Pax Solomon, Pax Americana, Pax Solomon.
This is the fact song.
Yeah.
You're born in West Germany?
Oh, you were?
There you go, so, right, and so, that's how, the international relations we're talking about. I send troops there to protect you, you send money to me to, and it all works out.
Okay, should I continue?
Mhm.
Yeah, all the days of Solomon, Judah and Israel, from the Dan to Beersheba, dwelt in safety. Everyone under his own vine and under his own fig tree.
Right, so now we're saying north to south. Dan is on the northern border of where Lebanon is today. Beersheba is south, but Solomon went even further south to the Red Sea, but yeah. But this is Dan to Beersheba is just the saying, the Hebrew saying, the north to south, right? But here's the other saying though, which is brought up in the prophets too. Being under your own vine, your own fig tree, that's a euphemism for what?
Peace, yeah.
Prosperity. Yeah. Peace,
And
prosperity.
independence or
Or-
autonomy? Not
No,
really.
but it's interdependent, but you have your own personal security through that interdependence, right? I think so.
God bless the child. It's
What's
good.
that?
Should we have Hamilton?
Is it, the talk
Yeah,
about Hamilton?
yeah.
Well, so, I mean, George Washington talks about it in the letter to the Jews of Newport, Rhode Island, that everybody in America will be under their own vine and fig tree. But
He says that.
it's a biblical phrase that means personal safety, personal abundance, and communal safety and abundance, right? Because everybody's under their own vine.
Sounds good, right?
Yeah.
Solomon,
Now let's flip the coin though. But.
but Solomon had 40,000 stalls of horses for his charioteers and 12,000 horsemen.
I wonder who needs that much food.
What? Well, but, okay, but in the book of Deuteronomy, when we learned the laws of kings, what is the king not supposed to amass?
An army.
Well, they can have an army,
Well-
but they're not supposed to have a huge army with a lot of horses and chariots. Or a lot of horses, because what is a horse? A horse with a tank. Right?
A horse is what?
A tank.
Oh,
A horse with
Oh,
a
okay.
military animal.
okay.
Merkaville.
An animal you had, a personal animal you had for transportation was a donkey. For Israelites,
So we're centralizing the ability of violence we talked about.
Potentially.
Yeah, it's an army.
Potentially.
What brings peace to this kingdom might be this.
The threat of war.
Right.
The threat of,
The threat of-
yeah.
Peace through strength.
Defense,
But
a good defense.
a good defense, right, but a good defense is deterrence,
Yeah.
right?
Peace through strength.
Can I ask a Hebrew question?
Yeah.
Why is, in chapter 4 and 5, why is the one letter set apart?
What one letter?
Well, before verse 6 here,
It's not online for me, so I have to.
oh,
Where's that?
well. It's very.
Oh, there's a
obvious.
K and a.
Oh,
Some, yeah,
Where?
this
Wait, first?
before verse 2,
no, it says it here. it doesn't
717.
here. Oh.
and all throughout.
That's what she's asking.
Chapter 4.
It's a pet?
It's the same.
Tell me, chapter 4, verse.
It's
what?
a pet, it's not, it's
Oh,
just.
no, 8:5.
Is it this?
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, when there's a samach and a pay, means in a scroll, a samach means there's a gap. That there's a gap between verses, and that's how a scribe will write it. And, yeah, that is. Or samach means. Yeah, and a pay means there's a gap that's open that goes down to the next line when you write it as a scribe.
It was in Samuel too, it just wasn't as noticeable. I don't think.
Yeah, it's just telling you when you have a printed Bible, it's showing you what it would look like in a written, a scribed Bible.
Oh, thank you.
And that's just a
That's your
tradition that how it looks visually.
That's a pet. That's a pet, yeah. Yeah, when you say pet, yeah.
So it looks. When you look at it visually in a scribed Bible, which is not common to have the Book of Kings in a scribed Bible.
Like
Yeah.
making a list,
Exactly.
paragraph return.
Yeah, exactly, paragraph breaks. If there were such a thing, yeah. Okay, good, verse 7.
Okay, all those prefix, each during his month would furnish provisions for King Solomon and for all those who were admitted to King Solomon's table. They did not fall short in anything. They would also each in turn deliver barley, straw for the horses, and swift steeds to the places where they were stationed.
So they supplied. They fed the horses.
And the horses.
But they also supplied the horses in the military bases outside of Jerusalem. right?
They're saying this is all the time of his reign, that this peace and this contentment and everything is like, so it's many years.
Yeah, we're not gonna read about war when it comes to Solomon.
Okay.
He's wise.
God endowed Solomon with the wisdom and discernment in great measure and understanding in as vast as the sands on the seashore. Solomon's wisdom was greater than the wisdom of all the Kendemites and that all the wisdom of the Egyptians.
Right, so what's the wisdom of the Egyptians? What could the Egyptians do?
Build.
Build huge buildings.
Buildings and
You know how
pyramids.
old the pyramids are? So Solomon, we're talking about like 3,000 years ago. The pyramids are like, I don't know, it's like 2,000 years older than that. They would have been still like the pyramids were the tallest buildings in the world until, I don't know, it was like until the Eiffel Tower or something like that, which came in the 19th century. I don't know, like it's something crazy, right? I mean, I'm not sure if that's exactly it, but the pyramids were by far the tallest buildings in the world forever, right?
Chichen Itza and.
Yeah, maybe Chichen Itza is tall, but I don't think it's as big as the.
It's not as old.
And it's not as old.
Not
too.
nearly as
Yeah,
old,
yeah.
not nearly as old.
But I have been to Chichen Itza, steps are very small.
Very,
Yeah.
very, and air and.
Yes.
You're not allowed to
Very
walk up
small.
it anymore, but.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Too dangerous to fall down?
Or something like that, or it's like
Where-
degrading or something like that.
Deterioration.
Yeah,
Uh,
but, yes, the wisdom of the Egyptians, but also astronomy and also math and also, you know, all this stuff. That's what it's saying about stuff.
Who are the Kedemites?
I don't know, some of
Some of
the.
If it was an ant, if it was an ant, it would be Canaanites.
It's not the Kedemites.
Sounds like Kedemite.
Needs an ant, needs an ant.
From Arabia, I'm gonna say, but I'm not sure.
He was the wisest of all men, wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite, and Heman the, oh God, Chokol, and Darda the son of Mahol. His fame spread among all surrounding nations.
Why do we have these four guys that he's smarter than? So Ethan the Ezrahite, or Eitan HaEzrahi, right, my son's name is Eitan. So now I said I was gonna tell you something, now I'll tell you. So there's been many great novels, you know, based on the book of Samuel. So one of them is called The King David Report. It was written by Stefan Hein, I think was his name, Hein. He was a East German novelist, right? And he wrote a book in East Germany that about after the death of David, King Solomon hires someone to write David's story. He hires this guy, Ethan the Ezrahite, to write King David's story. And the reason why then it says later that Solomon is wiser than Ethan the Ezrahite is because they kind of get into Solomon and Ethan get into a fight, and then they write in that Solomon's better than Ethan, right? It's a wonderful novel. It's really about political propaganda and things like that. But after, you know, because we read the story of King David, everybody read the novel, The King David Report. I forgot when it was written, in the 60s or something like that. But, you know, it's really him writing against, you know, state propaganda, but writing within a system, you know, so. But also, I told you also, what's it, the guy who wrote Catch-22, what's his name?
Heller.
Joseph Heller also wrote a great novel about King David, but it's fun, it's an American set. It's called, God Knows. Okay.
His fame spread among the surrounding nations. He composed 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. His discourse about trees, from the cedars in Lebanon to the hyssop that grows out of the wall. His discourse about beasts, birds, creeping things, and fishes.
He's not just wise when it comes to
Creeping
justice,
things.
he's wise when it comes to.
Animals and
Yeah.
fishes.
Natural world,
Right,
yeah.
like Aristotle,
Aristotle.
observes the natural world, right?
Yeah. Men of all peoples came to hear Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the earth who had heard of his wisdom.
Okay, so let's stop there, let someone else pick up, because now we're gonna, talk about a specific king who Solomon had a good relationship with, but
He's not just wise, he's knowledgeable.
knowledgeable, yeah, good, yeah. He's wise and observant and knowledgeable and curious, maybe, right?
He's a Renaissance man.
He's a Renaissance man. Yeah.
Before the Renaissance.
Yeah, there were many Renaissance. Renaissance
And it's not
icons.
just book
Yeah.
knowledge, it's wisdom and how
Yeah.
to settle things,
Yeah.
which is a different kind of.
Yeah, yeah. Good.
Wisdom was.
So,
all the
so
same thing
says his
back then, right?
official court biographer. But yeah,
We like the,
I mean, tradition says, as I said, tradition says Prophet Jeremiah, hundreds of years later, wrote this, right? But, and Jeremiah was not easy on kings, right? But Solomon seems to be a good king so far. Because of wisdom, because of curiosity, because of bringing peace, because of
fairness. Yeah.
fairness, because of all these things,
What
right?
he asked for, it's because of what he asked for from
Yeah,
God
what
as
he asked
opposed
for,
to.
God. But even still, I keep saying, he still has a downfall, right? We'll see.
Oh, everybody does if you're a king,
Okay, right, good.
all politicians.
Yeah, right, but we've been talking about for over a year now, about the politics of, there's always a downside to politics.
Right.
Or, you do one thing and there's a consequence, right? Okay? So now let's talk a little bit about international relations. Someone else pick up at verse 15.
And Hiram of Tyre sent his officials to Solomon when he heard that he had been anointed king in place of his father. For Hiram had always been a friend of David.
Right, so Tyre is one of the Phoenician cities, right, a city state. It's north of, Israel and what's Lebanon today, maybe in Syria, right? And so in Hiram, but Hiram was like a popular English name in the 19th century, like you look through history books and like Civil War generals or whatever, this name, okay?
Solomon sent this message to Hiram.
You know that my father David could not build a house for the name of the Lord his God because of the enemies that encompassed him until the Lord had placed them under the soles of his feet. But now the Lord my God has given me respite all around. There is no adversary and no mischance. And so I propose to build a house for the name of the Lord my God, as the Lord promised my father David, saying, your son, whom I will set on your throne in your place, shall build the house for my name.
Right, so what? So Solomon's going to do what?
Build it.
A temple.
Build it. Now, notice, here's some biblical theology, okay? So especially, here, look at verse 19, and also in 17, but let's look at 19. So leave note by it, build a house, right? L'shem Adonai, right? For the name of God, the name of the Eternal One, right? So in Exodus and Leviticus, which people say were written by the priests, it always talks about God lives in the temple, but in Deuteronomy, it says God's name is there, right? So historians will say, the people who wrote these verses and Book of Deuteronomy have a more transcendent idea of God, that God is actually outside, but the temple has some kind of something of God, right? While the Book of Leviticus is much more God literally dwells in the temple, right? Okay, so it's just an argument within the Bible that when you see phrases like this, you can see different ideas, right? Okay.
Please then give orders for cedars to be cut for me in the Lebanon. My servants will work with yours, and I will pay you any wages you may ask for your servants. For as you know, there is none among us who knows how to cut timber like the Sidonians.
Right, okay, so, now, so what's he doing here?
He's just
Another
trying to make a deal.
He's building the temple, but what is it? International trade.
It's another alliance, yeah.
Yeah.
Another alliance, yeah.
Yeah, alliance, but through trade, right? Yeah, and so what happens today, countries around, China is building ports in countries around the world, right?
Economics as a tool.
Yeah, economics is a tool of peace, right? Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about the name, the theology point, but what is there any commentary that if God actually exists in the temple, that's a little more like idolatry, because,
Yeah.
you know, it's kind of like, and to me, that's what a Hindu person would say about an idol. I mean,
Yeah.
that the god.
Right, so the Canaanites and different people, Babylonians and things, they felt, when they built an idol, they would say a prayer that then would literally bring the God
Right.
inside of
Right.
the. Right, and read the end of the book of Exodus, when God's presence comes into the temple, is that what Moses is doing? Maybe. Deuteronomy is against that idea.
Right,
Deuteronomy doesn't say God,
Yeah.
only God's shame, God's name, whatever that
I
means,
prefer that.
is there. Is that the temple is more of kind of an antenna that brings God's presence, not God's actual being. Is that idolatry? Not for the Israelites who wrote it, it wasn't idolatry, because there was only one God, I don't know.
Yeah.
But for Deuteronomy, is even more of a monotheist than the book of Leviticus. Right?
Thank you.
Idolatry is different, because you're praying to the object as God.
Right, but they believed that the God was in the object.
Yeah.
Or the God was some way channeling.
That's right.
Or the object was some way channeling God.
But if you were actually in the temple.
Yeah.
You're not really praying to the temple, you're praying to
Right,
God.
right,
within the
right,
temple.
but God sat, but in
It's
some
physical.
biblical ideas, and especially in the book of, in some of the prophets and book of, God sat on the ark. The ark was,
Praying to the ark.
you pray to God who's sitting on the ark. Right?
That's different.
While Deuteronomy was kind of against that idea, but even in the second temple, much later, there was no ark, right? So God became even more abstract, right? The room is empty. Okay.
When Hiram heard Solomon's message, he was overjoyed. Praise be the Lord this day, he said, for granting David a wise son to govern this great people. So Hiram sent word to Solomon, I have your message. I will supply all the cedar and cypress logs you require.
So why did Solomon need to outsource the wood?
That's where it
Those are
grows.
extra.
There's not a lot of trees in Israel. Yeah. And in fact, when the JNF 100 years ago started planting a lot of trees in Israel, that it was bad for the environment. Because they were the wrong kind of trees and they caused erosion, and we've only found that out later. And there's tons of eucalyptus trees now in Israel, right? Eucalyptus are native of Australia, right? And they take too much water and they're not good for it, but they're there, right? But these cypresses, they didn't have in the land of Israel. But what else is cypress? Cypress of Lebanon, have you ever seen one?
Large, right?
I don't know.
They're
big.
huge.
They're large.
They like redwoods.
Let's look at a picture.
I thought the temple was all stone. Where are these?
No, it wasn't also, it was also wood, wood paneling, they also had wood columns, here's a cypress. There's actually, there's one in. There's one in, right. There's one in there's a botanical garden, a little one in Montclair, that I went to once, they have a cypress on right there.
Cedars are big pine trees, like-
Cedar of Lebanon, I mean, cedar, right, cedar of Lebanon, but.
It seems to be true. Cedars and cypress.
Right,
Say
sorry,
cedar,
is that,
cedar's really-
you're right.
It seems to be true.
Right,
Cedar,
cedar's really. strong.
cedars are these giant, almost like,
They're
like
beasts.
big sur
Yeah,
kind of
right,
thing.
that's what I'm saying.
Cedars in Lebanon.
These are the cypress and the.
Good.
Seems to be cypress is a different kind of thing.
Yeah, maybe, you're right. It's-
Isn't like reference to the cedars being strong and different prayers, the cedars of Lebanon,
Yep.
which one?
Erez Balbanon. Sadi Katamar Yifrach, Erez Balbanon Yifte. So the righteous will flourish like a palm tree, like the cedars of Lebanon, right? Okay, good. So now keep going.
My servant will bring them down, the wood down to the sea from Lebanon. And at the sea, I will make them into floats and deliver them to any place that you designate to me. There I shall break them up for you to carry away. You in turn will supply the food I require for my household.
Trade, but also engineering.
Yeah.
Right? So how are we gonna get you these logs?
They float.
Build barges,
Yeah.
right? Yeah,
So
Just-
it's sophisticated.
Yeah, like,
Recognition of talents and.
my wife grew up in Vancouver. You could see, waterways filled with these huge logs still coming from the interior of, British Columbia and stuff like it. Here on the East Coast, 200 years ago, we destroyed all the huge forests, but, you still see places, huge ones, right? Okay.
So Hiram kept Solomon provided with all the cedar and cypress wood he required, and Solomon delivered to Hiram 20,000 cores of wheat as provisions for his household, and 20 cores of beaten oil. Such was Solomon's annual payment to Hiram. The Lord had given Solomon wisdom as he had promised him. There was friendship between Hiram and Solomon, and the two of them made a treaty. Keep going.
Yeah.
King Solomon imposed forced labor on all Israel.
So I'll hear that word again here, mas. So forced labor, we hear, it's not, it's levy is this better word, right? Levy means, not levy meaning like, the son of Jacob, levy meaning that counts, right?
According to Wikipedia, core is 50, about 45 gallons.
Yeah, right, 50 gallons of oil, right?
He
Okay.
sent them to the Lebanon in shifts of 10,000 a month. They would spend 1 month in the Lebanon and 2 months at home. Adoniram was in charge of the forced labor. Solomon also had 70,000 porters and 80,000 quarriers in the hills, apart from Solomon's 3,300 officials who were in charge of the work and supervised the gangs doing the work. The king ordered huge blocks of choice stone to be quarried, so that the foundations of the house might be laid with hewn stones. Solomon's masons, Hiram's masons, and the men of Gebal shaped them. Thus the timber and the stones for building the house were made ready.
Right, what's the house? It should be capital H, right?
Right.
The
House of God.
Right, so one of the words for the temple is just Habayit, right? That's why, like, the Temple Mount, we say in English, but it's Har Habayit, the mountain of the house. Right? So it was a mixture of stone and wood, because, like when you go to the Parthenon in Greece, right, we only see the marble that's left, but it was lined with gold, and I'm sure wood and all kinds of things, and the ancient Greeks painted the marble too, right? So like the marble statue that we see is just white, were actually painted in vibrant colors, right? And that partly in the 19th century, when they didn't know they were painted in vibrant colors, that was part of racism, when they said, oh, the classical, the tradition of white must look better, right? But it wasn't. It was all painted, the statues. Right? Okay. Michelangelo, when he was making marble statues to look like ancient Greek and Roman ones, he didn't know that they painted. Right? So they were just like, so, okay.
Can I ask where are the plans for this house with the ark? There were so many cubits and there was an architect behind it.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll see. Does it look exactly like the portable Mishkan? Not exactly, but in proportion to it. So let us stop there. We'll pick up with chapter 6 next week. If you're really into architecture, that's where we'll go next week. Let us let's give thanks for the food and let's sing. All right. Yeah, you ready? Hamalo Peshu Badonai Shivat Zion Hayim Kehom Adimale Sotinu Ushonenu Rita As Yom Lupa Goyim Adonai Vasinele Adonai Vasodimanu Shuva Donai Echitenu Kapikim Bane Adori Melima Verina Yitzor Halo Yelehu Baho No say Nesher Hasara. Boya, boya, bokerina. No say Alumos. Haverim the Haverot Nevaret. Yehishem Adonai Nevarach Me'atav Yad Olam. Bereshut HaChevra Nevaret Elohim Sha'achanu Mishalof.
Baruch Eloheinu Shalom, Shalom,
Baruch Eloheinu Shalchanu Mishalo, Tuvo Hainu, Baruch Hu, Baruch Shemo, we're on the bottom. Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu Melech HaOlam, Hazan Olam Kulo Betuvo, Be'en Be'en
Rachamim.
Who knows him and the whole basar ki leo makaso who to bo hagado tabi lo hasalanu be al yasalanu mazo leo lamba et babur shemo hagado ki wakanu banes lako Umeti lacho, umeti mazon lecho b'yota asher bara baruch atah Adonai asram Katu ve'apata v'tzavata u'berachta et Adonai Elohecha ha'aretz ha'tova asher natan ba baruch atah Adonai ha'aretz v'ha'amazon u'bnei Yerushalayim ha'kodesh b'mihrav yameinu baruch atah Adonai B'nei Barachman Yerushalayim Amen. Harachaman, let's hear it.
Amen.
Harachaman, Yivarach Bashamayim U'Ba'aretz.
Amen.
Harachaman, Yishlach Rachav Rabba B'Bayit Hazeh V'Ashulchan Zeh Shalchanu Alav. Harachaman, Yishlachanu Et Eliyahu Hanavi. Harachaman, Yishlachanu Et Eliyahu Hanavi B'Chol Lato. V'Baseh Lanu Lanu. V'Baseh Lanu Lanu. V'Baseh Lanu B'Sorot Tovot Yeshuot V'Nechemot. Amen. Harachaman, V'Yanti Leinu Yom Shavua Shabbat. Menachal Chayei HaOlamim. Oseh Shalom Dimromav Yaseh Shalom Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel V'Yimeru Amen. Adonai Olam Elokeinu Adonai Yivarech Et Amo V'Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.